Good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday morning and many of you are learning at home. You're seeing your teachers on Zoom. You're working at home and then you're taking photographs of your work and putting it up on Tapestry or Google Classroom so that your teachers can see what you've done. I wonder how you're getting on with this new and different way of working. For some of you, you might quite like it. For some of you, you might think that it's a little bit strange. Maybe you miss your friends, or maybe it's harder to understand what the teacher means. Do you know how many days we've been doing this for? This is our 5th day. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days. It might seem like more days than that. And we think we're probably going to have another 20 or 30 like this. If you haven't really got the hang of remote learning at home, don't worry. Every day that goes by, it gets easier. What seems impossible at the start is often possible by the end. I wonder if you've ever heard anyone say, practice makes perfect. Now, all the grown-ups around you will have had many times in their life when they had to learn a new skill or some new knowledge. If you like, you can pause this clip right now and you can ask your mum or your dad or whichever grown-up is at home with you about a time when they had something new to learn. It always seems so hard at first. Lots of you know Oscar, my son. Well, in the autumn, he started learning to play the cello. I wonder if you know what a cello is. You're right. It's a stringed instrument, isn't it? He's not using a full-size one, he's using a specially scaled-down version of a cello, and he's got his bow to go across the strings. It's hard. It's really hard. And a couple of times he almost thought he wanted to quit because it was just so difficult to get the strings to make a nice sound. But he kept going, and now, after just a few months, he can play some quite nice pieces on the cello. I'm so glad that he didn't give up when it was difficult. I'm going to tell you a story today that's from the Bible. And I always really like Bible stories that have the location in. When the story tells you which city it was in or which lake it was next to, I always like to go and find an atlas or look online on Google Maps or somewhere and find out where those places are. So you might want to do that after this assembly. It's about a city called Jericho. Jericho. And it's about a person called Joshua. We've got some Joshuas in school, haven't we? In year 1 and in year 2. God promised to be with Joshua and always help him after Moses had died and tell him not to be afraid. Joshua had to lead a lot of people to the promised land. They had to go through Jericho, which was a city with big walls surrounding it. God wanted Joshua and his people to take over Jericho. So he made Joshua do something that seemed very strange. He told Joshua to get the soldiers to march around the city every day for 6 days in silence. he said that the priests needed to follow them, carrying the Ark of the Covenant, which is where the tablets of stone with the 10 Commandments were kept. And they should blow trumpets, but the soldiers and the people who followed the Ark had to be quiet. And then, on the 7th day, they had to march all around the walls 7 times in the same way. And on the 8th march, they were all to make as much noise as possible. Now, I wasn't there, of course, but I can imagine it might have been a little bit like this. Let's do some counting. You say with me, day, and then we'll say the next number. Okay, ready? Day 1. So Joshua led the people, including the priests, carrying those tablets of stone with the 10 Commandments on, around the city. Now, Jericho wasn't a huge city compared to the ones we have nowadays, but still it would have been a pretty long walk to go all the way around. I imagine that maybe on day 1 it was quite a novelty, quite interesting. Round they went, never done this before. Day 2. Perhaps not everyone was so keen to walk around the city walls again. Day 3. I imagine that today, the people who weren't very keen yesterday might even have started to grumble and complain about this. Maybe they asked Joshua, why do we have to do this? We're walking around this city. There's got to be a better way. Day 4. I'd imagine that today there were some real complaints. I'm tired. I'm too busy to do this. I have to look after my children instead. Day 5. What? We are walking around the city again. Why don't we just go into the city? Why do we have to walk around it? Joshua, are you sure that you heard God correctly? Is this definitely what he wants us to do? Day, you're going to need 2 hands. Day 6. Maybe it was more of a trudge today as around they went. And then came the change. Day 7. This time, God had said to Joshua to march around the walls of Jericho 7 times, just as they had done on the other days, to go round quietly. But on the 8th march around the walls, they were all to make as much noise as possible. And behind me is a picture of how that might have looked. You can see they're blowing horns there. And some of them are cheering. Well, Joshua and his soldiers made as much noise as possible, and the walls of the city fell down. It was very strange. How would a big noise bring down such big, strong walls? Now, because you're all at home and we're not going to disturb anyone else, I invite you to make a noise like that when I get to day 7. So you can cheer, you can clap, you might want to stamp your feet. If someone at home is maybe on a conference call or a Zoom or on Teams in the same room as you, don't do it right now, wait till they're finished. But if you're not going to disturb anyone in your family, let's give it a go now. When I get to day 7, you can make a noise and I'll close my fingers when it's time to stop. Here we go. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, here it comes, day 7. And stop. Did you make a really loud sound? Well done. Now, your walls didn't fall down, I hope. I hope your house is still fine. This is a strange story, isn't it? What does it mean? One of the messages from this story is to keep going and to trust in God. I'm sure that after the first or second day, Joshua said, "Oh God, can you just help us right now?" And God may have been thinking, "I'll help you when I'm ready, not when you ask. Just keep on going and help will come. Trust in me." Another message is that God is all-powerful. You might think it's impossible, but He can find a way. Sometimes when things are hard, when they seem so difficult, we can't see a way through, we just have to do our best and keep going. And eventually, what we manage to learn, or what we manage to do, is more than we could ever imagine at the start. What seems impossible turns out to be possible if we stick at it. So I'd like you now to think about something you find hard at the moment. Maybe it's being in those Zoom meetings. Maybe you feel a bit embarrassed and you don't want to put your hand up and look at the camera. Maybe you're finding it hard to do neat handwriting. Maybe the maths is hard for you at the moment. So just think about that, and just quietly you could say, "God, please help me." And I'm going to pray. Dear God, thank you for the story of Joshua, which teaches us how much you helped him. Help us when we find things are difficult. Help us to trust that we will get there and achieve in the end. Amen. We have another assembly on Friday. So I'll see some of you for story time tomorrow or Thursday, and I'll see you all again on Friday.